Very much. Thank you. Hi. Thank you so much. Good morning. Nice to see some familiar faces. Hi. Before I begin, I would like to thank TYPO San Francisco for inviting me here today, and thank you so much for spending the morning with me. It's really great to be able to share some experience with you. I'm going to stand over here because that's really tiny over there. So you might be thinking, some of you might know me, but many of you are probably like, who the heck is that little Asian girl on stage? So I know I'd be thinking the same if I was sitting in the audience too. So introduce myself a little bit here. But my name is Satsuki Shibuya. I get Satsuki Shibuya, all these weird names, but Satsuki Shibuya. And when people ask me what it is that I do for work, I have a really hard time because my hands are in like so many cookie jars. I'm like constantly wanting to do something, and you'll probably find out in a little bit. But if I do have to put some labels on what I do, I would say that I'm a artist, designer, creative consultant, curious explorer, singer-songwriter, crafter, animal lover, dream-catching advocate, nature enthusiast, living life endorser, just to name like a few things that I do. The curious explorer kind of helps keep things open for me too, so I just kind of add that in. So why am I here at TYPE? I mean, I am a designer, so I guess that kind of puts me in the category, but there's so many great masters here today that are going to be sharing their processes and thoughts about their design work. And I thought, what can I share with everybody that I hope would be meaningful? And I thought that I would want to share about something that's inspired me and that's made me change actually the way that I work 180 degrees. And hopefully by sharing even a little bit of that, that maybe it'll spark something inside you, to do things differently. So what happened? I know maybe some of you saw the title of my talk, but basically, I guess I should switch to this. Basically, on November 22nd, 2011, my life completely changed, probably for the rest of my life, and I'll get into that a little bit. But before that date, I was one of those type of people who always was on the go. I always needed to do things to the max. I needed to push myself to the limit, sometimes over the limit, fall off the cliff. But I was always on the go. And after I graduated from high school, I attended USC to study music business. Even during that time, I was working 4 jobs. Madness. I would go out, in the evenings, and so no sleep, pretty much. But that was the way that things went. And after I graduated, I worked in the record business for a little bit, and even that was crazy. And I went back to design school. I studied graphic design at Otis. And even during then, it was craziness. And then I started my company. But throughout this whole time, it was just trying to hustle, make things happen, meet people, go to this, go to that. And I felt that by doing that, it would lead me to success. And success, for me, I thought, would lead me to happiness. And so I would push myself. But what happened was, on November 22nd, 2011, I went to bed as usual, super stressed, anxious, feeling like nothing is getting done. And I woke up in the middle of the night to use the restroom, came back to bed, and then the room just started spinning like crazy, and I didn't know what was going on. I've never experienced anything like that. So, I wake up my husband like, oh my God, honey, I don't know what's going on. I can't get up. And so he's like, okay, we'll take you to doctors. So the next day, I go to the doctor, and, I tell him my symptoms, and the doctor's like, checks me out, and he's like, well, it's just probably some inner ear thing. You'll be fine about 2 days. Don't worry about it. So for someone who's on the go all the time, I can't do anything, but I thought, okay, 2 days, so no big deal. So I do these head exercises, and try to clear my ear out or whatever. And after 2 days, the vertigo is gone. But I was left with this intense head fog. I don't really know how to describe it, but the best I can do is, that feeling when you wake up in the morning and you're kind of out of it? It's like that times 1,000, all the time, 24/7, never goes away. And on top of that, anytime I would concentrate on anything that's stimulating, so if it's a light, someone talking to me, computer, phone, whatever, it felt like this intense, squeezing of my brain, and just painful. So I'm going through this, and I can't do anything. I'm pretty much just sitting like this all day for 30 minutes. And then if this gets bad, then I'll probably lie down for a little bit. And that's kind of how I was living my day. So if you can imagine someone that's constantly on the go, constantly doing something, needing to achieve something every day, every moment, it felt like someone just chopped off my life right in front of me, like my limb just got chopped off, and I couldn't do anything about it. Complete lose of control, right? And I just felt everything was collapsing, and you see the little downward spiral where it says work. Pretty much that's kind of where I was going, and getting sick. So through this process, the only thing I really do is think about, even thinking was kind of tough, but even today I have a little bit of head fog, so if I'm kind of blabbering, it's because I'm a little bit dazed. But all I can really do is think about what is it that I'm supposed to do now? What can I do, really? And the more that I started digging, the more I discovered the way that I work, design processes, the way that I interact with clients, to the way that I talk to people, whether it's through work or life, I guess, that everything that I learned up until this point was actually the opposite of what I really felt I should be doing. And so that's what I wanted to share with you today. Some of the things I've experienced and learned throughout my time this past year and a half, until I got to that little aha moment, which was like a year and a half of ahas. And then I feel like I'm at life kind of where the heart is. I mean, I'm still learning, every day still learning process, but I felt that things I learned was definitely worth sharing with you today. So the first lesson that I got to was this whole idea of more is not better, more is just more. I'm sure some of you might understand where I'm coming from this, but I didn't until I got sick. So this idea of more, I think, in society we're taught that being busy and doing more is exciting, right? Like when you see someone doing more and kind of, telling you like, I'm busy, there's a part of you that kind of feels like, wow, I want to be like that. That's somewhere I want to be, and doing more work and being busy means that they're doing great things. And, this is kind of the way that I used to think. But once I was kind of chopped off by this whole idea of busyness, I realized that more and busy was not equal to better, doing better work or living a better life or whatever you want to call it. It does not equate. And that for me was a big revelation because busy was always kind of where I was at, for 10 plus years. That's all I really did. And I think when it really dawned on me was when I look back, this past year and a half has been probably the most fruitful for me. If you want to talk about money, I guess, financially speaking as far as work, but even like the type of work I'm doing, the way that I'm living my life, the people that I'm meeting, it's been honestly the best year for me. But it's been the least busiest for me too. Not really out of choice, more out of just because I have to be. And so then I started thinking, okay, if that's the case, then there's definitely something going on with my equation of busyness was better. So I started re-examining it. Okay, what does that mean? And I noticed that the reason why it was getting better was because, I'm limited to the things that I can do per day. My concentration is only so much. And so what that means is, before when jobs would come to me, or if I'm going out and getting jobs, right, I would just kind of be like, oh, that job sounds fun. Okay, I'll take it. Or, no, that job's going to pay me well. Okay, I'll take it, And I probably have about 8 or 10 projects just going on at one time. I'm kind of touching them here and there. But because of my limited time, I really had to think about, why am I taking that job? It can't just be because for whatever reason, some nilly-willy reason. It has to be, what does this project mean to me, really mean to me? Why am I doing it? I'm going to be spending time on it. I'm going to be spending my energy on it. It better be worth it. And so once I'm able to cut off everything, the excess off of the project, and I'm really focusing in on why I chose it, that's when I started thinking, okay, at least the project that I'm doing, you naturally love it, right? Because you've cut off all the junk, and you know that you really want to do it. So I started doing these projects, and for me, my cap, I realize, is about maybe 1 or 2 if I'm working this way. Some people, it could be 5, 6. Everybody's different, but for myself, that's what I realized. So for these 1 or 2 projects that I'm really concentrating on, it's like all my focus is on it. And that's all I do, and I'm kind of getting in this zone, which I love. It's great. But I started doing this, and then I noticed that the clients I'm working with, the relationship actually started getting better because my attention is with them too. So not only am I concentrating on the project, but my interaction with them is more direct. My mind is not on 10 different things. It's like, I'm doing this, you're talking to me, okay, we have this really great energy going. So then I started noticing, so the more deliberate I am about my choices, about the way that I'm designing, about the way that I'm talking to people, this funny thing started happening where, I'll admit, it takes time. I'm not gonna bullshit, but I shouldn't say bad words. I'm not gonna pretend, but it's almost as if the work that I started doing really started to equate to the worth that I felt. If we're talking about business here, I guess financially, that before, I think as designers, we all tend to feel like maybe we're underappreciated, sometimes we're not paid enough for the work that we do. But I feel like if you really are deliberately doing a certain project and you're really putting out good work and you can stand behind your work, people will start noticing. Even if it's a niche market, it doesn't matter. The clients that love your work will come for you, and if you're doing the same work, things just start to equate, and that's when it starts to become kind of magic. Not that money is really the determining factor of your worth, but it's really great to be recognized as a designer, the work that you do, and that someone is willing to pay you for that. So these are some of the things that I started noticing, that by not being busy, I'm doing better work, I'm getting paid better, I'm meeting better clients, I'm meeting great people. Okay, so why was I not doing this before, right? And also, by not being busy, it actually gave me more time to live life, which is the next thing that I realized. Ta-da! So take time to live life, really. So, I don't know about you, but I see on WebMD or whatever, oh, you should live life. You'll be less stressed, you'll be happier, and it's like, okay, yeah, that's true, and it's like in when you're out there. And I felt like by doing the work that I love, I'm really living life, right? Like work equals living life. And so that's kind of what I thought about it this whole time. But in actuality, I wasn't living life really. Like I wasn't enjoying the moments. The moments of noticing the little things. I'm not talking about client work, but like, for example, if you're walking down the street, when was the last time that you heard like a bird chirping in there? Things like that, And I started to think about, okay, so I have this time away from work that I can live life. Why does it matter as a creative? I think it's important for everybody to live life and enjoy it. But it matters, I think, especially for creatives, because when you live life, it gives you a chance to really gain new perspectives and new experiences. And as creatives, storytelling is kind of what we do, right? Like we're communicating all the time to people. Certain ideas, that are kind of in the air, we take those ideas and we make it into something that people can understand. But you only have so many ways of telling a story. There's only so many ways you can say something from yourself. But if you live life and you hear stories from other people, you experience things, you can bring that back into the work that you do. And it actually becomes limitless, the way that you tell things. You can say it in this way or that way, or whatever you choose. But you'll never know that until you start going out there and living life and experiencing things. So that's the first thing about this whole live life thing that I started noticing, that when I'm doing work, it actually became more colorful, became more lively, that I actually had more ideas of how to execute versus I'm like squeezing out like a little bit of something just to get, that project to go a certain way. You know what I'm talking about. But the other thing is that by experiencing life, you get to know yourself better. And this is so important. I did not make time to do this, so I'm going to say this. So important to get to know yourself better as an individual, and why? By knowing yourself better, you learn more about the way that you process things, you learn more about the way that you work, you learn more about the way that you interact with people. All these things that are so important, just to be, doing work as a creative or whatever. And so I never really took time to do this, to really get to know myself until this vertigo happened. And so now I do this thing called me time. Every day, I do this every day, even a little bit. These are just some of the things I do. There's a longer list, but these are main things that I do, just to share. So one of the things I do is I walk in the morning. We have like a little bit of nature around us. I love nature, so I like walk around and listen to the trees kind of rustling when the wind blows, and I like to watch little lizards crawling. And I like to meditate and read in the morning. They kind of go hand in hand. It can go either or, but I read, and then usually I meditate and kind of think about the day and set my intentions. What do I want the day to be like? And it really helps to focus my mind. Another thing I like to do is play with Skippy. He's our dog. He's just full of life, like just always so happy. And it reminds me to just live in the moment. And even if something bad is happening, it's okay. Everything's forever changing. You could just let it go and really enjoy it. And napping, so important. I love napping. And dreaming. Dreaming and napping are kind of hand in hand for me. Lately, I've been into dream analysis, but that's like a whole other story. So, out of this me time, I found a new way of working that I didn't know existed before. There's my brain. So, what it is before, when I would get an idea about something, right? Like the old me would be like, go, go, go. So I get an idea, it's like, yes, execute. I gotta do something with it like now. And to be honest, like 50% of the time it'd be good. Good meaning if I look back at it, it's like, oh, that was good. And the other 50% was like, why did I do that? And it kind of felt like the luck of the draw. And I didn't know why. I just thought maybe some days I'm feeling better than others. But I found out through this me time that actually that's probably the worst way for me to work. Like I said, everybody's different. So for me, I need ideas to simmer and kind of, just hang out for a while. So I came up with this technique called planting the seed. I use it for other parts of my life too, but talking about projects. So I get this idea, and instead of trying to do something with it immediately, I plant it into my head, like book. And then I sleep with it. I know that sounds wrong, but I sleep with it. I eat with it. I hang out with friends with it. I shower with it. And it's not like I'm constantly thinking about it. It's just kind of implanted there. And then what happens is that by by experiencing life, by kind of hearing other people's stories, taking my own surroundings, all these things start to, kind of simmer in there, with its juices. And then, all of a sudden, the idea, I get this gut reaction, which I'll talk about next, but I get this gut reaction like, yes, it's time, and then it's ready to pluck. So I pluck this idea, and then I execute it. And I have to say, I'm only human, and nothing is perfect, but 100% of the time up until now, every time I do this technique for myself, the project, I look back and I'm like happy. It's like, yeah, and I think it really is because I took time to experience life, to really let life and all of that infuse into this idea. And so it kind of becomes this mega idea thanks to other people and experiences and things like that. So these are the reasons why I feel like experiencing life is important, as creative people, to find new ways of telling stories, find new ways of communicating with people. That's what we do as our work. So talking about oops, did I talk too long there? Okay, there you go. So speaking of gut reactions, this is kind of where I ended up next. Take a moment to listen. Intuition, gut, spirit, whatever you want to call it, just listen. It already knows the answer. So before I got the vertigo, I'm going to be confessing something here, but before I got the vertigo, I was one of those type of people where if a job were to come to me, the first thing that I would think about is, okay, is this job going to give me fame, money, recognition, all those things, right? That's the first thing that I would think about when I get a job. And because I felt that those things, I'll put it here, but those things would lead me into success, would make me happy. And so that's all I based it on. And when I would get this inner gut feeling, I'm going to call it intuition, you can call it whatever, but when I would get that feeling like, oh, you shouldn't take that job, I would just go, like, no, I need to take that job because for these reasons. And the more I did this, the more I noticed that my inner self, this intuition, this gut feeling that I got, and this whole outer wanting this fame and success and whatever, they started to split slowly but surely, one is going the other way, which is my true inner wants, and this whole wanting this business to go well, like going the other way. So what happened is that, I'm no doctor, I don't know, but I feel like when I got that vertigo, it was finally at the point where these two parts just split. It was like my body was like, that's enough. You're like not doing this anymore. Because I can't do it anymore, right? So here I'm stuck with like two halves. I don't know what to do with them. Okay, I gotta do something. I'm just sitting here. One part of me is like over here, and the other part of me doesn't know what to do. What is the glue that holds these two together? So, I'm pondering. And I thought, okay, I got it. What it is that I needed to be truthful with what I'm hearing inside my intuition. What is it telling me? Is it telling me that I need to take that job or not? And so before I would ignore it, like, you don't know anything, I'm gonna go with my logic. But the more that I listened to this intuition and the more that I started to really go with it, I started noticing that these two pieces were coming together. Whether I liked what that was telling me or not, whether it made sense or not sometimes, I thought, I might as well give it a shot. So now when I do work or when I'm, picking projects, I always try to tune in to what it's feeling inside. Like, does this project feel good or not? And now it's as if these two pieces are together now, where the things that I truly believe and the type of work that I do and the way that I interact, it all comes together. And if we're going to talk about design terms, it's like branding, right? Where now I do a lot of work in social media. So now anything that I, for example, tweet, or some image that I Pinterest, or maybe something I blog, the way that I talk to a client, everything, since it's coming from a genuinely honest place, it actually colors everything the same, as if it's coming from one source. And it actually comes naturally because you're just being truthful to yourself, right? You're not trying to put up a front, you're not trying to make things happen, it's just naturally flowing out of you. And so it colors everything to, like one package. And so I feel like if I were to have listened to my intuition more, who knows, maybe the vertigo might have not happened. I don't know. But all I know is that by doing this, it really has changed things for the better as far as the way that I work. And helps me to discover new things, which is actually the next thing that I want to talk about. Which is make time to explore, frolic, and passion, or follow your passions. So this is kind of like the whole living life thing, find time to live life, but it's a little bit deeper in that. I think when we graduate school or we learn a new craft or whatever it is, we kind of work in this really tight area, square, I guess. That's kind of how I visualize it. But for me, for example, I have a degree in music business, so that's kind of one half of the square. And then I have a degree in graphic design, so that's like my world is there. And I used to work only in this world. I used to do a lot of graphic design client work, and that's kind of where I was at. But then I started thinking, but there's so much of this unknown out here. I mean, my hands can't reach. Like, it's unknown. And you can explore all of that and more. And no one has to give you permission to do it. You can do it all you want. I mean, my husband always laughs at me because I'm like Amazon whore, because I love buying books and reading. And the more that I read, the more I want to learn more. And it's like endless. And what it does is that the more you learn about this outside stuff, it infuses into your work before you really know it. And it actually gets deeper and more meaningful and more exciting. And it's just exploring, how these things that are not part of your vocabulary, how these things really come into your work and make it into something different. So where this all kind of started was, after I graduated design school, I was, working in graphic design, right? And one day, I was thinking, I really want a bag. I don't have money to buy a bag, but I really want one. I'm just gonna make it. And so my husband got me a sewing machine, and this is what I made. It's my ampersand bag. It's my first bag I made. I like type, I'm sure you can tell. But this is the first bag I made, and I loved it. Not the greatest looking bag, but I loved it, the process. And I thought, okay, I really like this. I don't know how to sew. The last time I took any kind of sewing class was 7th grade, like home ec. So it's not like I have a degree in, I don't know, fashion design or product design, right? But I like this. So I thought, you know what? Okay, let's see if I can do it as a job. And so what I did was I created a home goods line. I did it for 3 seasons, first under the name Zakka Nouveau, and then I switched over to Satsuki Shibuya. But this is actually a photograph from my last collection called Winter Wonderland. It was shot by the very talented Dabito of Old Brand New. If you don't know of him, check out his work, oldbrandnewblog.com. So good. But we worked on this lookbook together. Here's another photo. And I loved it. I loved making things like sewing. This has nothing to do with graphic design. Well, maybe the prints, but that's about it. But I silk screened myself, I created the prints myself, I sewed it myself, I shipped it myself. I mean, everything was like one-man job. And it was so fun. Like, why wasn't I not doing this earlier? But the more I continue to follow this passion and explore, take time to do this, I started realizing, you know, I love this, creating product, but I like working on details. But working on products, you have to create quantity, so I'm like, yeah, I can't do that. So where that led me to next was this, which is where I'm at right now. But this is a neck piece I did for a company called Koshka. It's called Braid of Love, and it's a one-of-a-kind. But I love working on details. This took a while, but it's just fun being able to get into there. And I don't know, I might go back to doing quantities later, and that's, you know, the door is not closed. But by chasing this, or I guess having fun and frolicking and exploring and doing all these things, it kind of is leading me to the next job, you know, and I don't know where this is going to take me either. I just know that this is where I'm at right now in my mind. But talking about this exploring, I actually came back to my old love, which was writing music. This is a track that I just released earlier this year called Necco. If you're interested, you can look at it on Bandcamp or SoundCloud under Satsuki Shibuya. But I was writing music about 8 years ago, and I stopped because I got burnt out. And as you can imagine, someone on the go all the time, I was writing music probably for the wrong reasons, not for love, for sure. But this time it was different. After exploring and frolicking, I came upon some music books that taught me different ways of looking at music and writing music. And I thought, you know, I want to try again. And so I released it, and it's so fun writing music. I just love it so much. And I'm working on a second track right now, but, you know, so you never really know where it's going to go, you know, when you spend time to follow these thoughts. But the biggest project, I have to say, that came out of this past year during this head fog, I guess I'll tell you about it first before I tell you what it is. So after I graduated Otis in 2009, I started my business, and I didn't know what I was doing. I've never launched a business before, and so I thought, okay, well, let me call up some friends who are doing something similar and see what they're doing. So, I call, say, let's meet for tea. They're like, sure. So we met for tea, and that quickly became a once-a-month women's entrepreneur group meeting. And it was great. We met every month for 3 years, and we talked about life, talked about our businesses. It was really inspiring. I mean, it was just a great group of people, and I loved it. But just as that intuition that I was sharing with you, something in my gut around 3 years was telling me, it's time to try something different. And at that time, I didn't know what it was, but something inside me was like, we gotta move on. So as sad as I was to let go of this group, I said goodbye. And around that time, I started tweeting things like this. And some of you might be familiar with my Twitter feed, but for those who are not, I tend to tweet in the morning after I do that reading and meditation. I have some thoughts that I have, and I usually throw it up on Twitter. And it's really for me to kind of set the tone for the day, to visually see it, and to really own what I'm saying, what I'm thinking. So I started sharing these things on Twitter, and then around the same time, I got calls from friends, and they say, hey, Satsuki, are you interested in meeting my friend? She wants to talk, and maybe she felt comfortable because of this past experience with, the entrepreneur group. So I'm like, okay, sure, yeah. And so I started talking to people about their work life, and I noticed that with creatives, a lot of times you can't really separate the creative and the life part. For me, I feel like, I'm Japanese American, but it's like who I am, and I feel like as a creative, that's who I am too. It's like it's not separable. So I would talk to these women most of the time, and they would tell me it's hard to balance this work-life thing. And so we talk about ways of doing it, perspectives, and whatnot. And I loved talking to these people about this. And so these friends started saying, "Hey, have you thought about doing it for work?" I'm like, "Doing what for work? Talking to people?" And they're like, "Yeah." I'm like they're gonna pay me to talk to me, right? I'm no psychologist. I don't have a psych degree. I'm not a life coach. So I was like, no. And then my friend's like, "Yeah, you should try it." And I thought, you know what? Why not, right? So I launched Dream Co-op. It's the creative consulting side of my business, but I talk about people, about their dreams, aspirations. Companies, I talk about their philosophy, kind of infusing certain visions and bringing it into the company so that they start integrating. But I just love seeing things grow, or especially seeing people's dreams and ideas come to life. It's like so wonderful. I'm sure it's probably the farmer side of me talking, because half of my families are farmers, but I just love seeing things grow. And so the more that I see people, through Dream Co-op, and the more that I get to talk to them, it's just so rewarding. But this would have never came about. I mean, I never thought of myself as a consultant or a psychologist or whatever. I never thought of myself as these things if I never really started from this whole idea of just exploring and kind of seeing where my thoughts go. And now it's just part of my company, right? So really take time to kind of follow those passions and see where it takes you. You never really know. It might take you nowhere sometimes, and that's okay. But a lot of times it does lead you to new work or new projects or new ideas. But out of all the things that I've learned this past year through this head fog and being sick, I think this is probably the biggest lesson I've learned, is running at your own pace, run at your own pace. So I do a lot of work on the internet, and I think it's a great place. I've met amazing people. I've been able to connect with people for work, for friends, just in general. It's just a wonderful place to be. But I also feel like it's kind of a black hole that can suck you in to this place where you start comparing yourself. And you start to kind of think about your insecurities and what you don't have, what you're lacking. And I used to do that too. It's where you look at someone's blog, you look at someone's website, you hear about something, they're doing something great. And for me, before, I would immediately feel like, okay, I have to do something now. And if not better, I have to execute like now, And it's just immediate anxiety, right? So it's like, it's kind of like a love-hate thing, this internet thing. But, through kind of thinking and being more in the moment and doing all the things I just shared beforehand, it started to reveal something to me. And it's that, we're all different. On the internet, I guess, if that's where I'm kind of, showing examples, the internet is only one part of that person, like a smidge of them, and I'm comparing my whole self to their smidge, right? And for me before, I would think, however I'm living my life, that's comparable, but it's like apples to cherries or whatever, right? It's like two different things. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I do it too. On the internet, I only show so much of myself because that's what I want to present, and that's fine. It's just to keep a perspective of knowing that you are an individual, you do things differently, they do things differently, and that's totally fine. Like, that's totally cool. And so I have this little turtle up here because I found out that this whole time I thought I was I don't know how many people know the story, the tortoise and the hare, right? But I thought of myself as a hare this whole time, but I realized that it was just a tortoise wearing a hare outfit. Like, I just came to this realization. And so I got rid of that hare outfit, and I really embraced the tortoise part of me. And it's so great. I just feel like so much more at peace. And now when I look at things on the internet, and seeing people who are in the same industry or people who are doing great things, I can genuinely, honestly feel like, yes, that's great. And really feel happy for them and really support them. Whereas before I'd be like, I don't want to see that crap. It's like, I can actually feel like, as a community, because it's important, right? We're a small community. For a community to really support one another in what we do. If someone is doing great things as far as work, we should really feel like, yeah, that's supporting us as a whole. We should be happy for them. But it's hard when you're comparing, You have this battle. And so I felt like, okay, everything really starts from within. It starts from me. Whereas before, I would try to find an outside source to tell me what to do. The way that I should be doing work, the way that I should be processing things. And I used to think of success, like I said, as money, profit, or that's the same thing. Money, recognitions, all these things. I used to think that was what success was. But I realized, no, I'm going to redefine it for myself. And this is different for everybody. But for me, success is not measured by the person next to you, but by your own standards and definitions. And this thought just came one day, and I popped it up on Twitter. And now it's a limited edition letterpress poster, if anybody's interested. I have a few more left. But it just really made me think about what success meant to me before and what it means to me now is so different. And so it really starts with you. It really starts with within. It's not about outside sources, like books, mentors, all these things, all these places that people tell you advice. That's great. I'm not saying that that's wrong. That's good, but it's not really about them telling you what to do and you're kind of getting swayed left and right. It's about having your foothold in your thoughts and who you are, what you stand for as a creative, as a designer, and then hearing all these different advices and things from outside and kind of putting it into your creative pouch, the things that you feel like align with you and the things that don't, you can just kind of put on the wayside. But you start to realize that everything is really from you. So I think for myself, by realizing this, I'm less swayed, I'm making better choices, I'm doing better work, I'm meeting great people. Everything just kind of rolls together. Oh. Okay. Okay. And at the end of the day, it's really just being authentic with yourself. It sounds simple, right? But for me to get to this point, it took all of that to realize that it just really is about being honest with who you are on the inside as a person, as a creative, just as a whole being. And all this time, I was chasing after somebody else's success. All this time, I was looking to outside people to find my path. If they have gone through it and they're successful, I felt, okay, that means I should take that road, to be successful like them, right? Like I thought, okay, that's the way to go. But I found out, no. It's about me finding my own path that hasn't been taken yet, that hasn't been walked on yet, because that's just for me to walk on. That's just my own unique way to go, right? And so just like the title of my talk, The Road Not Taken, I felt that this poem was the perfect illustration of how I felt. And it's by Robert Frost called The Road Not Taken. And it goes, "The two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveler long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had warned them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay, in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference." Thank you very much.
Satsuki, thank you so much for that. It was fantastic.
Thank you.
Introspective, illuminating, and really insightful. We have a few minutes, so if you have a moment for a question or two,
Sure.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
If there are any questions for Satsuki from the audience? Yes, just here.
Hi. Thank you.
I'm curious, I'm sure other people in the room might be thinking this too, like, do you manage to get your health, your vertigo under control, or do you feel like, since you've sort of slowed down and are starting to live a more authentic life, that is also less of an
So the vertigo is gone for now. They don't know when it's going to come back. Doctors don't know what's wrong with me. I've been to like 25 doctors. It is, for now, I'm still left with a head fog. I'm still foggy. It's gotten better. But I noticed that the more that, I am truthful, and the more that I work like that, the stress level is lower. And so it does really help to keep things more under control. The more that I find myself reaching out and doing things, it does build. It gets worse. And so, it kind of helps to keep me in check, definitely.
Thank you for that. Any other questions? Great. Satsuki Shibuya, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.